In the shadows of chaos. Ted Turner, madman or genius, the mind that reshaped media forever. The mad genius behind the cable boom, Ted Turner's Rollercoaster legacy. What if I told you the cable TV revolution wasn't just born in a boardroom, but forged in chaos, risk-taking, and one man's audacious vision to change the way we consume entertainment forever? By the end of this video, you'll uncover how Ted Turner went from a turbulent childhood to creating a media empire that redefined television, only to face the ultimate tests of survival and reinvention. Stick around, because you're about to witness how one man's brilliance and madness reshaped the modern media landscape. To understand Ted Turner's legacy, we have to start at the beginning, and it's anything but smooth sailing. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1938, Robert Edward Turner III, better known as Ted, grew up under the shadow of his demanding and volatile father, Ed Turner. Ed ran a successful billboard advertising business, but his intense ambition came with an equally fierce temper. Ted's early years were a mix of privilege and psychological scars. Ted's upbringing was marked by frequent moves and a sense of instability. The family eventually settled in Savannah, Georgia, where young Ted's father pushed him relentlessly to succeed. Ed Turner was a strict disciplinarian who expected nothing less than perfection. This harsh environment fostered in Ted both a fear of failure and a burning desire to prove himself. Imagine being a child trying to meet impossibly high expectations. Ted's father believed in tough love, sending him to military school in the hopes of instilling discipline and resilience. At the Georgia Military Academy, Ted excelled academically and athletically, but the emotional toll of his father's constant pressure weighed heavily on him. Yet it was here that Ted began to cultivate the determination and grit that would later define his career. In 1960, Ted enrolled at Brown University, where he studied economics. However, his time at college was cut short when he was expelled for having a woman in his dorm. A scandal at the time. Returning home in disgrace, Ted rejoined his father's business, only to face an even greater challenge. In 1963, Ed Turner, overwhelmed by financial pressures and personal struggles, tragically took his own life. At just 24 years old, Ted inherited the family business, along with its debts and uncertainties. Would he sink under the weight of his father's legacy, or transform it into something far greater? The answer would take the world by storm. Despite his youth and inexperience, Ted was determined not only to save the company but to expand it. This pivotal moment in his life became the foundation for his meteoric rise in the business world. Ted wasn't just a man to maintain the status quo. He expanded the billboard business, doubling its size and making it the largest in the South. But billboards weren't enough for Ted's restless spirit. While many would have been content with this success, Ted's ambition pushed him toward new horizons. By the 1970s, Ted began setting his sights on an emerging industry: cable television. At the time, cable was mostly used in rural areas to deliver local broadcast signals that over-the-air antennas couldn't reach. It was seen as a niche service, far from mainstream. Yet, Ted saw its untapped potential. He realized cable could be more than just a means to retransmit signals. It could be a platform for original content and widespread connectivity. In 1976, Ted made a bold move by purchasing WTCG, a struggling UHF station in Atlanta. With an eye on innovation, he transformed this local channel into something extraordinary. WTCG became the first superstation, broadcasting its programming nationwide via satellite. It was a groundbreaking concept, a local Atlanta station available in living rooms across the United States. Suddenly, viewers from New York to Los Angeles could watch Atlanta Braves baseball games, classic movies and reruns, programming that was both accessible and entertaining. The superstation concept wasn't just about reaching a wider audience. Ted's strategy also involved leveraging advertising in ways that maximized revenue. By offering national reach to advertisers at a fraction of the cost of traditional network slots, WTCG became a valuable platform for brands and a revenue powerhouse for Turner. But this revolutionary idea didn't come without challenges. Critics scoffed at the notion of a local station achieving national relevance. Traditional broadcasters and cable providers saw Ted's ambitions as a threat to their dominance, yet Ted thrived on adversity. He fought legal battles, navigated regulatory hurdles, and took on industry naysayers with his trademark boldness. What drove him through these obstacles was his unwavering belief in the power of television as a unifying force. Ted wasn't merely building a business, he was laying the groundwork for a media empire. His vision for WTCG, later rebranded as TBS, cemented his reputation as an innovator willing to defy convention. This phase of Ted's career exemplified his knack for seeing opportunities where others saw limitations. He wasn't just creating a new kind of TV station, he was reshaping how audiences consumed media, setting the stage for his next audacious leap. If WTCG was bold, CNN was outrageous. In 1980, Ted launched the cable news network, the first 24-hour news channel. At a time when the major networks dominated news with evening broadcasts, the idea of a non-stop news cycle seemed ludicrous. Ted's critics laughed. Who would watch news at 2 a.m.? Where would he find enough content to fill 24 hours? And how could he possibly compete with established giants like NBC, CBS, and ABC? But Ted was undeterred. He believed people wanted access to news anytime, anywhere. He invested heavily, hiring journalists, building studios, and launching the channel with an air of conviction that bordered on insanity. CNN debuted with the promise of delivering the news you need when you need it. The early years were rocky, advertisers were skeptical, and competitors scoffed. Yet Ted persevered, often pouring his own money into the venture. His gamble paid off when CNN became the go-to source for breaking news, including the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan in 1981 and the Challenger disaster in 1986. But CNN's true turning point came in 1991 during the Gulf War. CNN's live, round-the-clock coverage of the Gulf War was revolutionary. For the first time, viewers around the world could watch history unfold in real time, often from the front lines. With reporters like Bernard Shaw broadcasting live under missile fire in Baghdad, CNN became synonymous with global news. The network's motto, "The most trusted name in news," was earned through its fearless and unprecedented reporting. What many don't know is how this coverage not only elevated CNN, but also redefined how media outlets covered breaking news. The immediacy of live reporting became a new industry standard. Major networks scrambled to adapt, and the media landscape shifted forever. Ted Turner's once mocked vision had not only succeeded, but had changed journalism itself. Yet the success came with immense pressure. Maintaining a 24-hour news cycle demanded immense resources, and competitors began to enter the market. Ted's relentless determination to stay ahead sometimes led to risky decisions. Even so, his ability to innovate and adapt kept CNN at the forefront of global news for decades. The creation of CNN didn't just make history, it changed how history was documented and consumed. Ted's gamble transformed him from a daring entrepreneur into a media mogul whose legacy would endure for generations. But Ted Turner's roller coaster journey wasn't without its plunges. Success bred enemies and challenges. His outspoken personality and unorthodox methods often put him at odds with competitors, politicians, and even his own board members. In 1996, Ted made a decision that would change his empire, and not entirely for the better. He merged Turner Broadcasting with Time Warner in a $7.5 billion deal. While this expanded Turner's reach, it also meant giving up control. By the early 2000s, AOL's disastrous merger with Time Warner diluted Ted's influence even further. The empire he built was slipping away from him. During this time, Ted's brash nature and unconventional style didn't always sit well with the corporate culture at Time Warner. He was a visionary operating in a world that increasingly valued caution over boldness. Boardroom politics intensified, and Ted found himself sidelined, his influence gradually eroded by executives who didn't share his ambitious outlook. This loss of control was a bitter pill for the man who had once ruled his media empire with such confidence. Despite this professional setback, Ted Turner refused to fade into obscurity. He redirected his energy toward causes he cared deeply about, channeling his drive into philanthropy and conservation. From donating $1 billion to the United Nations Foundation to spearheading environmental efforts like bison restoration, Ted transformed himself from a media mogul into a committed advocate for global change. Yet even as he turned his focus to philanthropy, the shadows of his empire loomed large. The Time Warner merger remained a cautionary tale of corporate ambition meeting harsh realities. Ted's journey through success and loss highlighted the fragility of even the grandest dreams when faced with shifting priorities and unforeseen challenges. Ultimately, Ted's resilience shone through. He showed that setbacks, no matter how significant, could be transformed into opportunities for reinvention. Though his media empire was no longer under his control, the vision he had for shaping the future of communication and connection left an indelible mark. His willingness to embrace risk, weather failure, and reinvent himself defined his legacy just as much as his triumphs. Ted Turner's story didn't end with the loss of his media empire. Instead, it evolved into something equally impactful. His philanthropic ventures showcased a different side of the man often labeled as brash and unpredictable. He became a pioneer in sustainable ranching, turning vast swaths of his land into eco-friendly cattle operations. One of Ted's most notable contributions was his leadership in environmental preservation. As the owner of the largest private bison herd in the world, he worked tirelessly to restore these animals to their natural habitats. This effort was part of his broader commitment to conservation, which extended to initiatives in sustainable agriculture and wildlife protection. Ted understood that his legacy could not be defined solely by his contributions to media, but also by his stewardship of the planet. Meanwhile, his influence in the media landscape endured. CNN's 24-hour news cycle inspired countless imitators, and his vision of global connectivity paved the way for the modern streaming era. Platforms like Netflix and YouTube owe a debt to Turner's audacious belief that people wanted content on demand, anytime, anywhere. Ted's innovative spirit extended into philanthropy in other ways as well. His billion-dollar gift to the United Nations Foundation in 1997 was a transformative moment in global philanthropy. The fund supported UN programs focused on pressing issues such as climate change, disease prevention, and child welfare. This act of generosity was unprecedented at the time, and cemented Ted's reputation as a changemaker on a global scale. Even as the world shifted toward digital media, the foundations Ted built remained relevant. His foresight in championing satellite broadcasting and real-time news created a framework that today's media empires continue to build upon. He proved that innovation is not just about creating something new, but also about reimagining how existing systems can serve humanity more effectively. Ted Turner's legacy is one of audacity, resilience, and an unrelenting commitment to change. He demonstrated that true pioneers are those who refuse to be defined by failure, and instead use it as fuel for their next great endeavor. His impact stretches far beyond the confines of cable television. It is etched into the fabric of media, conservation, and philanthropy. So, what can we learn from Ted Turner's wild ride? Ted Turner's story is one of contradictions. He was a visionary and a risk-taker, but also impulsive and abrasive. He revolutionized media, creating the superstation and 24-hour news cycle, but ultimately lost control of his empire. Yet through it all, his legacy as the mad genius who changed the way we consume information remains intact. And here's the real kicker. Ted Turner didn't just change television. He showed us the power of audacity, the willingness to dream big, take risks, and keep pushing forward no matter the odds. Perhaps the most enduring lesson from Turner's journey is this: success is rarely a straight line. It's a series of peaks and valleys, wins and losses, brilliance and missteps. But for those bold enough to take the ride, the rewards can reshape the world. So, next time you flip through channels or stream a live news event, remember the man who made it all possible. Ted Turner's Rollercoaster legacy proves that genius and madness often go hand in hand. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the lives of the world's most influential business icons. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into the minds behind the empires. Who should we cover next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep chasing your vision and building your legacy.